Hello, good morning, and welcome to Newsfile. You know this is your most authoritative news analysis platform. And here on Newsfile, we put Ghana first. He's been taunted with choosing a running mate. The opposition actually said, his opposition actually said he had run out of options, or that all his friends and those eligible had abandoned him. Then suddenly, he chooses a professor, and the discussion changes. It's Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman, the winning ticket for the NDC's John Mahama presidential campaign for 2020. Now, Ghana's coronavirus numbers continue to rise exponentially in the last few weeks. We are talking about almost 24,000 people infected, over 130 people dead, and those infected include those at the front line, doctors and health practitioners, near 200 of them affected. Is it time to reconsider the restrictions that have been eased, particularly reopening of the schools and the ongoing mass gathering activities said to be fertile breeding ground for the spread? These are the two issues that will engage our attention this morning on Newsfile. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back. This is Newsfile. And my take today, I title it, Take Charge, Wear a Mask. Watch this.
Every person needs to look at your own risk. You need to be aware of what is the local transmission. You need to know what the transmission in my area is. We do this every day of our lives as human beings. We manage risk. We decide when we cross the road. We decide when we fly. We decide when we have an operation or not have an operation. What we need is the information to make those risk-based decisions. We need to gain the knowledge to be able to make good decisions. We decide on our proximity to other individuals. We decide on the intensity of our social engagement. We decide how long we spend in that environment. We can be advised by government. We can be advised by science. But in the end, this comes down to personal motivation and personal choice. But in the end, it comes down to individuals and it comes down to communities. If it doesn't feel safe, it isn't safe for you.
That's the World Health Organization. And I say, stop pointing accusing fingers at the president and government and take charge of your life. Observe the protocols set out in law by the president, including wearing a mask. Stop asking, why is my child in school and why have the schools opened? Because the law says the schools may open. May is not mandatory, it's not compulsory. Of course, subject to the observation of the protocols set out in the law. The law says your child or your ward may return to school. May is not mandatory. It's not compulsion. It is permissive. So you have the option to exercise in the circumstances. And to your many invitations on the Auditor General's matter, I say this briefly. Fellow Ghanaians, on the occasion of African Anti-Corruption Day today, I feel a very special pride as a citizen of this great country to congratulate the 500-member CSOs and Occupy Ghana for standing up against the corruption sought to be perpetrated against our Constitution and our laws. Rising up to the defense of Daniel Yao Domilovo is a major demonstration of the duty to defend the Constitution and live out Article 41 of that Constitution. The statements issued by the CSOs represents the purest points of the Constitution and laws, exposing the poverty of appreciation of those defending the indefensible assault on the Constitution, laws of Ghana, and standard practice in democracies. I invite you to ignore the obfuscation of the issues and the ruse in heightening some conduct of the Auditor General instead of a focus on the real issues that, 1, we have not written or imagined granted our President's power to exercise disciplinary control over that class of officers of independent constitutional bodies and justices of the Superior Court who, by Article 146, are not subject to removal from office by our presidents. And lastly, that the terms of leave applied to the Auditor General is a sham, and even if those of the public service apply to him, the services policy, which is compliant with law, directs that unspent leave is forfeited. It prohibits accrual of leave generally and makes exception for agreement and approval of accrual of only 2 leave periods. Let's stand with the Constitution. Let's stand with the laws of Ghana. Let's stand with the civil society organizations. Let's stand with good governance. Let's stand against corruption. Bring back Domilevo. That's my take. Thank you very much. And now let me introduce my guest for this morning's discussion of the 2 biggest issues concerning our health, our lives in COVID, and also whether or not the stage is set for the 2020 elections with the choosing of Professor Nana Opoku Agyeman as a running mate to John Dramani Mahama. My guest this morning, Abdul Malik Kwekubaku, Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, our regular panelist, Joyce Bawa Muktari. She is special aide to His Excellency John Dramani Mahama. And on Zoom, we'll be joined by Esla Owusu Ekofo, who is MP, Ablekuma West Constituency and Minister of Communications. We will be discussing. Thank you very much for joining us. I see that you have already joined us. Thank you. Right. We will be joined on the issue of the COVID-19. Dr. John Amwesi, who is Lecturer, Global Health Department, School of Public Health, KNUST, and leader, Global Health and Infectious Diseases Research Group at the Kumasi Center for Collaborative Research into Tropical Medicine, KCCR. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Right. So, this is how the announcement came about. Let's check how Professor Nana Opoku Agyeman got introduced to us, and a couple of statements that have been made about her selection, and then we'll return to the studio for the discussion.
What is the choice the flag bearer is making for his running mate?
As you may be aware, the flag bearer of the NDC just had a meeting with the National Executive Committee of the party to consult us on its choice of running mates for the 2020 general elections. And that is in line with the constitution of the party, like I've already said. The consultation has taken place. Earlier, he had consulted members of the Council of Elders of the party who had given their support for his choice of running mate. At the NEC meeting we just had, there's been a unanimous approval of the National Executive Committee of the choice of running mate by the flag bearer. And so I can tell you that the running mate of His Excellency John Dramani Mahama for the 2020 general election is Professor Nana Jane Agyemang. That choice has been approved unanimously by the party. We are certain in our minds that this is the winning ticket. His Excellency John Dramani Mahama, ably supported by the competent, trustworthy, honest, sincere, matured Professor Nana Jane Agyemang will deliver victory for the NDC.
Right. So Sami Jamfi is the communications director of the officer of the NDC, and after a closed-door meeting to select or announce the selection of Professor Nana Opoku Agyemang, he had to meet with the press and now disclose that publicly. So Joyce, we start with you here. The impression you get listening to the NDC's communicators is that this is the winning ticket, as though she were the flag bearer.
Well, thank you very much, Samson. Good morning to you. Good morning, Mr. Bako, and good morning to Ursula, and of course, all who are watching us. And I always say a shout out to my family and friends who are in Salaga South constituency in particular. Well, I'd like to say thank you for having me, and indeed, on this rather very auspicious occasion, we've had President John Dramani Mahama nominate his running mate in the distinguished personality of Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang. Professor Nana is no guest, she's no visitor, she's really no neophyte. She's an individual who has distinguished herself in her own right. A scholar of many years, an educator of educators, a distinguished female leader with demonstrated and demonstrable leadership qualities. We sometimes forget that by the time Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang was nominated and confirmed as Education Minister, she had had an illustrious career as a trainer of trainers, as a teacher, as a lecturer, as the very first female vice-chancellor of a public university here in Ghana. She brings to this ticket a depth of knowledge and experience, leadership qualities of an uncanny kind, of a unique kind, a touch of wisdom and nativity, above all, deep knowledge and passion for our development as a people. Something like all of us. We've managed our small firms, we've managed our small businesses as small entrepreneurs and all of that. This is an individual who has managed a huge institution, a full term of an unblemished, pristine approach to how she handles her duties. She's gone about her work with enormous passion, with a certain length of humility, a God-fearing woman, a Methodist, a mother, a grandmother, and everybody's teacher and friend. I believe that for many months now, consultations have been going on, very far-reaching consultations on who becomes John Dramani Mahama's choice of a running mate. Indeed, as I keep saying, the pendulum has swung many weeks and months. The guesses have been out there. Your guess is as good as mine. There were quite a number of females who made it on the list. But of course, President Mahama, in consultation with the party elders, in all our prayers, settled on Professor Nana Jane Opoku Agyemang as his running mate. I believe that her nomination as Ghana's very first VP nominee of the largest and most successful opposition party or party here in Ghana, is a toast to all of our calls for our women folk to serve at the highest levels of our national development. I believe that unlike most of these appointments that sometimes characterize or create a certain impression of tokenism, this is a woman who is more than qualified in her credentials, in her sterling qualities, in her demonstrable leadership qualities, and in how she has led her very own life. Unlike many people with talents such as hers, Nana chose a life of academia and became one of our greatest female academics of all time. She has led her life as she has led her career, leading many young people, empowering many young people. She is beyond your idea of a feminist because she has not just generated enormous empowerment for Ghana as a whole, but I believe that she comes also with some international repute. She has studied in many institutions of learning across the world. She has lectured and taught in equally many institutions. She's currently president of the Women's University in Zimbabwe. I do think that Nana's achievements are highly commendable.
Right.
I believe that it sets a tone for all of us, young women, young men, name it. You know, I would always tell you that my idea of a feminist has always been someone like my mother, who has educated, who has empowered, who has led many young women to very distinguished careers and lives, some of them even better qualified than she herself. I believe that on that table, Nana comes with a huge constituency.
We'll look at very many aspects of her selection, including what she brings to the table. She has issued an acceptance note and said that she will justify the honor done her. Now, and the first question I asked you, we will deal with that as well, why there appears within the NDC party to be a communication as though she were the flag bearer instead of a running mate. Let's hear from Esla Owusu-Ekufo. And Esla, the group that you have headed once before and you are still a member of, FIDA, sent in congratulatory messages. I have heard you also express delight about what has happened. FIDA says that they find her to be a strong advocate for affirmative action law in Ghana. FIDA Ghana considers her appointment as a major step in getting more women in the top hierarchy in politics and national governance.
Thank you, Samson. And let me say good morning to all your viewers and listeners, to my constituents in Ablekuma West, and my relatives around the country in Oda, Esium, Brekum, and all the other places, right, including Edriamwa. And it's a pleasure to be on your show this morning. Samson, the movement to accord women the rightful place in governance has been long and hard and arduous, and we made incremental progress. However, we still have a very, very long way to go. I mean, if you look at the days of and I think Kweku can add a bit more to that, the development of our democracy here with the first 10 females appointed into parliament, the women who helped in the fight against our colonialists and the fight for independence, who have largely remained unrecognized, unsung, and their efforts not acknowledged. And I'm talking about Akwili Shoshosho, Dede Ashkinsha, and the others. But we've come a long way. And so as a women's rights activist, I'm delighted that a woman has been appointed as the running mate of the largest opposition party. I know the challenges that are in the political terrain. My heart bleeds a little bit for her. And that is why I made that public call that I'll urge everyone in discussing this nomination to focus on her track record, on what she brings to the ticket, and leave out the personalization and the insults, because that does not help anyone or advance the cause. Sometimes in our quest to advance the cause of our political party, we forget that there's a larger issue at stake and that we carry the weight of our agenda on our shoulders. And it's for me, we have done a great disservice to the women's movement in our selectivity in protecting women in public life who've been attacked. And I had issue even with FIDA at some stage and told them that I felt that they had become too quiet and hadn't been as much in the forefront as we were known to be 20 years ago, 10 years ago. Right. Now it seems everybody has gotten busy. And so the issues that demand that we speak out, and organizations like that don't. And when we do that, some of us have stopped attending many of these meetings because when we were personally attacked, people chose to look at what was happening through partisan political lenses and applauded those who were attacked. There are certain lines that you do not cross. And I think I need to remind all of us as women's activists that there are certain lines that when you cross, you undermine the integrity of the work that we have been doing. And I've been doing this for the past 30 years. You undermine the integrity of all the effort that has been put in. And before we started, other giants, greats, had been working in this from the time of Anijage. I see us as the thin edge of the wedge. You're making space and making life a little easier for the next generation of women activists who would also continue with the struggle. We're not there yet. What does this mean, this appointment mean to the advancement of the cause? Now you would have to look beyond the appointment of one woman to a particular position to see whether she's sitting on top of a structure that would help many more women get into that position. But the harvest is plentiful, but the laborers are few. So everyone who comes to this with the desire to do a little bit more, to make life easier for the next generation of young people is welcome.
Right.
Now, like you rightly said, it's as if the NDC is marketing her as if she's going to make the difference to their candidature. She's not the one on the ballot. Let's not lose sight of that fact. And she cannot make up for the inadequacies of her flag bearer, who is the one who is going to the contest. Okay. So in all the excitement, it is as if the NDC themselves have given up on the strengths of their flag bearer and are hoping that Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman would be the one who would help them to win. Okay. You do have your work cut out for you, and it's not as easy. It's not going to be as easy as.
Hold your thoughts there from that very, fabulous preliminary comments that you have made, which is clearly in sync with what you have campaigned and crusaded for the most part of your life, and for what some of us got to know you as Ursula. Now, Kweku, this is not the first time a woman is being selected. So what is this thing about Nana Opoku-Agyeman partnering with John Mahama?
Well, yes, you're right. If you say that this is not the first time a woman is being made a running mate of a political party. Indeed, if I cast my mind back, maybe we've had about 7 or 8 in the Fourth Republic. Right. And then if you want to add Lieutenant Colonel Christian Deborah, who was running mate to R.P. Bafo the Great, he was then on an independent ticket in the Third Republic, I suppose. Yeah, I think so. Then we have about 9. So really, it's nothing new in that sense. But I hear my NDC friends make a point, and I think it was articulated in their press conference announcing the selection. They make a point about, indeed, this is a proud moment to be a member of the NDC, and for that matter, a Ghanaian, as for the first time in our Fourth Republic, one of the 2 most dominant political traditions has taken a bold step to shatter the glass ceiling and barrier to women involvement in the highest office of the land. So you see, they are conceptualizing, they are creating their own framework. The framework, and it's factual, though, is relative to the fact that they are talking of the 2 dominant political traditions. Yes, that's also, it's obvious. If you are talking of the 2 dominant political traditions that have ruled this country since the Fourth Republic, then this is the first. And so they believe they've done something. Why is that is a fact, and quite an exciting and interesting scenario for us to interrogate. It comes with also its challenges, you know, in the sense, and was it the first time ever that they had opportunity to elevate a female to that status? I'm not too sure about that. In the countdown to the 2008 elections, there was some agitation and canvassing of support for Madame Betty Mould Drusu to be the running mate. And indeed, Mrs. Rawlings, who was then a key member of the NDC, went out of her way to launch a campaign. I got an interview she had with Radio Gold and everything here. And it didn't work. I'm not sure the issue of affirmative action or empowerment of women or elevation of women to that level was no issue then. It was still an issue. It's been an issue since the 1950s. So nobody can tell me that they were not ready for it. It didn't happen. To the extent that even Mrs. Rawlings herself, in this time not for running mate, but wanted to go for the highest. Of course, she was competing or seeking to upset a sitting president. It came with a lot of challenges. The party gave her about 3%. So within the context of the party itself, there was no groundswell acknowledgement of the need for a female to be promoted to that level. But having said all this, yes, we are in 2020. We're going for 2020 elections. The party, and in this case, it's more like the flag bearer. He does it and he brings it for endorsement. So we should also take that into consideration. Has decided to what? Shatter the glass ceiling and bring her forward. There are other points they made about the female factor in this thing. So I get the impression that, well, we are being invited to interrogate, not just because she's a female, but in this case, I'm restricting myself to the female, that consistency. What is it that we've done for that consistency over the years, or if you like, relative to the Fourth Republic? We are being told that this choice could inspire a further empowerment of that consistency. Question, would it necessarily attract her companions, the counterparts, female counterparts in terms of votes?
In the political front, this is very significant, isn't it? We have had, for example, the NPP at a point, we knew that Haji Ali Mahama was in, you know, significant consideration, and then it didn't work. You know, like you mentioned, the NDC to Betty Mould Drusu, then we knew that something went amiss, and then she lost the support that she was getting to be considered. In the state itself, by way of political appointment, we have done quite a lot for the women. We have had women chief justice, we have had women attorney generals, and women in ministerial offices like Esla herself, equally qualified to even be a running mate for her party. But to have a political party like the NDC make that decision, that must be very significant.
Yeah, well, the choice of words, but I think I will concede. I have said it's a smart move. I've said it's an exciting choice. That's what I have said already, meaning that it has some significance. how much value you put on the significance will be determined soon when we begin to look at the specifics.
Okay.
Okay? Because whilst I can see the NDC inviting us to look at the fact that, look, this is also a choice for women empowerment, a vote for women empowerment. We're not looking at her only because she's a woman. I think they will concede to that. We're going to look at her track record, professional track record. We're going to look at her political track record.
Right.
You have to combine all those things to be able to...
So let's start there with you. She clearly was chosen ahead of other very competent, equally, strong people within the party. Kwesi Boche, we heard about Ewa Dakon, we heard about also even Kobna Dufo. These are heavyweights. She beat all of them to it. What do you think worked for her?
Well, that's why I said I'm looking at what the NDC self has put out there. And I have a sense that they decided that, look, let's bring this element of women empowerment, that a woman rising to that highest office. Of course, all the other ladies who were running mates, and this is without any disrespect to them, were solid women, women of integrity and everything, but their political platform was not that massive. So it didn't have the potential to materialize into an electoral victory, unlike the NDC's case. And I'm being very factual here, scientific, not allowing my personal biases to inform what I'm going. Otherwise, I would have said the unlikely situation of the NDC winning. But that's not, we're doing scientific analysis here, trying to be as much as possible objective. So yes, the potential in her case is there relative as compared to the other ladies who were made running mates, I'll concede. But you see, the paradox is this. Whilst they would want to court some votes or cultivate some, sympathy votes from that constituency, because Madame Opoku-Agyeman has been a minister of state before, responsible for education, I can see the education sector and issues to do with education coming to the fore.
Okay.
Almost inevitably. So I find it quite interesting. Whilst the NDC may have thought that, look, push the women empowerment factor to the fore, let's see what we can do, because yes, there'll be some women who would want to see a woman vice president. There will be some women. I didn't say all women. There'll be some women who not bother about that at all. They're going for party. There are people who vote on party lines and other factors, not necessarily this one. But once you bring her forward and you seek to play the female factor, which I say don't underestimate. I don't underestimate it. Her profile, political profile, which goes even along with her professional profile, because she's an educationalist, is the track record in office, the delivery of the Mahama administration relative to education, and her own role in that. It's so good. It's difficult to put a Chinese wall between her administrative, acumen or her professional handling of issues at the ministry and that of the Mahama administration.
So if you took her and decided to assess her achievements, her leadership track record, including having come into government and served as a minister, if you took her and pitched her against Dr. Bawumia, for example, which has been done, at the point of the selection of Dr. Bawumia and at the point of her selection, you could say that she's miles ahead of Dr. Bawumia at the point of selection.
Well,
right?
Again, the adjective, miles ahead, that description may be debatable, but I think I get your drift. She's had 4 years of governance experience.
And before that?
In terms of the politics.
Before that?
What was she before that?
She's headed a university.
No, I was not talking the professional. I was looking at the political.
Okay.
After all, Bawumia too was a deputy governor of Bank of Ghana. But Bawumia had not had any political exposure,
right,
as far as I can recollect. Okay, So, because you asked the question as to the first point of call when they were selected. Yes, in that sense, if you want to do a comparative thing, which is a bit tricky and shaky, not too well-founded, is that she had 4 years as a Minister of Education, I think from 2013 to 2017, before becoming a flag bearer. Bawumia did not have that political exposure before becoming a running mate. Before becoming a running mate in Bawumia's case. But you see, we've passed that stage relative to Bawumia. He's been running mate twice or thrice. He's going to be the 4th. He's been a vice president for nearly to be 4 years by that time. So it's not easy to compare them in that sense. To be honest, there'd only be much grounds. But I'm saying that the track record in her ministry as Minister of Education necessarily will become the other side of the coin. When you play the female thing, let's elevate a woman to the office of vice president. Wow, it sounds really nice. Let's be honest. And then, this lady, fine, in my candid opinion, a decent woman, has a political track record, which is in the at the Ministry of Education. We examine that as well. So the two will go together. Yes. Apart from the fact that I have professional track record. But I doubt if there's any debate there, ought to be, relative to her professional track record as Vice Chancellor, as educationalist.
Well, because of the encouragement and the, I will say, the caution and advice from people like Esla against a certain projection of certain issues, I'm a bit reluctant, but we still have to deal with the issue. So we'll come back and look at the issues raised by the NPP's, Director of Communications, the Majority Leader in Parliament, about her and how people have interpreted all of those comments. But Joyce, if you can address that question, how did she, with not as much political exposure and experience as all the other candidates, perhaps also with not, a pocket to support the tickets,
I like that,
beat all these guys?
Well, Samson, I am particularly delighted this morning that at least my senior Isla has actually changed her tactic, and it's actually heartwarming, and I must acknowledge that I'm particularly happy that she took this tone this morning.
You haven't followed her after the nomination. She's been chastising the party and all other people who have decided to be negative.
It is why I'm actually acknowledging that exemplary approach, really. It is actually one of those very interesting questions that has imposed many times over. Beyond the fact that Nana Jane is a female, there's also the fact that of all the names that you've mentioned, she stands tall on qualification, on experience, and in her field of endeavor. I think she's one of the tallest, the very best you can find. So there's no competition really about her credentials for the job. That is not in doubt. I believe that Mr. Bako has actually underscored that.
Politically, those guys have the clout, if you like.
But you see, clout is relative, Samson. I may not be a political heavyweight, but I'm sure I have a certain clout with a certain crop of young people. You should see me on the Legon walk this morning. The kids stop over. Oh, I didn't know it was you. You look so big on television. Oh, I didn't know it was you. So we all carry, to an extent, a certain clout within our areas of operation. But in Nana's case, she carries a clout locally, internationally, in politics, in academia. Note that the NDC in particular has always had this very beautiful collaboration and cohesion with academics. Right from the days of President Jerry John Rawlings, we had the late Professor John Evans Atta-Mills as vice president and then as president. Subsequently, we've had the President Mills ticket with John Dramani Mahama. And now we have, in fact, we also had John Mahama with the late Vice President Mr. Arthur, who was himself an academic, a technocrat, an economist of some repute. So for Nana at this point, I think beyond the fact that she's female, she is all of these things encapsulated into one person. That she happens also to be a woman is just icing on the cake for all of us. But on her credentials, and all of us sitting here, we will envy that 54-page CV. She has a Juris Doctorate in law. She has 8 master's degrees in French, in English literature, in poetry. But in all of that, this is a woman who has found time to author many books, to even provide the University of Cape Coast. If you go there and you see how she utilized the talent in that enclave, you'd be impressed. As early as a young student in Wesley Girls, I call her Prof. Nana was a senior prefect. In all of our schools, we know, even our year group, our senior prefect is someone that much as she was our mate, we hold her in a certain esteem. We see her in a certain light. So right from that age, she had a certain demonstrable leadership qualities, a certain magnanimity, a certain genuineness. And when you look at the example of Nana's own family, you would love to give your children to her, to lead, to mentor, and to educate. I think she brings a lot more than just the 51% of our society that is an embodiment of women.
3 children, all with PhDs.
Absolutely.
Is that the example you're looking at?
I would say there are many of these examples, as I said, but this is her story. You understand? There are many people, there are even persons who are not even within our formal sector who have raised children of equal measure. But when you look at Nana's life, it is a life of positivity, a woman who brings to the ticket this level of experience, this maturity, a certain safe pair of hands beyond being female. And look, there is enormous value in the goodwill that she carries. It beats money any day. I started by telling you that, like all of us, Nana could have chosen a path of corporate Ghana, utilize her talents there for personal aggrandizement. Unlike all those who chose the corporate ladder, she chose to remain in academia. And you should meet some of her students.
So central in her selection.
Central in her selection
is to get credibility for your tickets.
No, she brings enormous credibility to the ticket. She's trustworthy. She brings a certain leverage for both male and female. She brings also academia. Remember one thing I always ask people. The fact that there's been wide acclaim of her nomination is because I believe that, unlike any man, John Dramani Mahama is one of those men who would happily, willingly nominate a female vice president. We've had conversations around this table about President Akufo-Addo himself when he tried to nominate my English teacher, Haji Halima Mahama. He faced stiff opposition from within the rank and file of the party. Haji Halima Mahama, like Eslosu, like Nana Jean, can stand on their own right to run for president of Ghana, of any country for that matter. So that they bring strong credentials to any ticket should not be downplayed. But remember that President Mahama himself is a colossus, a man who has occupied practically each and every political space. And you see, when you listen to some of the criticism sometimes, I'm happy that Mr. Bako has avoided those sorts of criticisms. Listening to the majority leader, for example, very disappointing.
We'll still look at them so that you can put them in perspective and respond to them
and to put it in proper perspective. You see, let's give credit where credit is due. It takes not just any man to go out there and pick out a female VP nominee. And on this occasion, remember, it's not also about tokenism. This is not a small political party trying to make inroads.
But your critics will say, you had this array of, candidates, so to speak, but a good number of them come with a baggage. So Nana Opoku-Agyeman is the safest to pick.
Let me start from that point and take you to the next level. The Honorable Hannah Tete stands tall in all of our political conversations. Where is Hannah today after having served Ghana as trade minister and as foreign minister?
She was not in the mix of the...
Funny enough, she was always in the mix, and there was always Marietta Brewer appear upon.
Right.
You understand? For almost 2 years, as I said, we've had this conversation around John Dramani Mahama's prospective vice president in running mates.
I see.
And this is the basis for this point is that, listen here, this is a political party that can very easily form the next government. So going to nominate Nana Jane as VP is no mean achievement.
All right. Now, Ursula, yes, Nana Opoku-Agyeman may be someone who doesn't come with the kind of baggage that will bring problem to the NDC's ticket. You started to talk about credibility, and many have raised that issue as well. But is it not obvious that if Ursula were appointed or selected as the running mate to the NPP, any NPP candidate, the discussion will be elevated above that candidate, perhaps, but focused on Ursula?
Yes, Samson. The candidate's personal attributes, what she brings to the ticket, would always be part of the discussion. However, the impression being created that it's as if by her appointment she automatically would win the votes of all women is very, very, very far from being the truth. Or that by her appointment, the NDC has demonstrated its women-friendly credentials. It's also not supported by the evidence. And I'll explain. They had the opportunity to choose a female to lead their party if they were indeed so enamored of women's empowerment. The opportunity presented itself for them to have a female as their flag bearer. They flatly rejected that opportunity and delivered her a miserable or very weak 3%, which was a clear demonstration that they rejected her candidature as a person and the gender she represented, her sex, the female side equation that she was bringing. And everybody knew Nana Konnedu's credentials when it comes to women's empowerment. We don't have to go down that way. If indeed within the NDC itself, they had an affinity, a desire to widen the space for women's participation in politics, they would have seized that opportunity then and done that. Let's say that maybe the time was not right. And so they probably feel that it's a better time now. But by giving Nana Konnedu 3%, and not just that, but literally hounding her out of the party for even daring to aspire to lead the party, which eventually led to her forming her own party. That speaks volumes about the mindset of the party in terms of women's representation. They have space for more women in their leadership in terms of the executives. But there is one opportunity that they failed to seize, which I still fault them for when I have the chance to talk to them about it. When the MPP started on this, and mind you, the record is clear, when it comes to creating opportunities for to fill more women at all levels, the NPP has always been the leader in that. When it comes to innovating and introducing policies that would create or assist more women to enter into and to stay in positions of authority, the NPP has done that. We've consistently had more women in parliament than the NDC has. The NPP introduced the 50% rebate on filing fees for female candidates, which all the other parties emulated. The NPP was the first of the two big political parties to attempt to have a woman as running mate in 2008 when candidate Akufo-Addo nominated Haji Halima Mahama to be his running mate. Unfortunately, the National Executive did not accept it. But when it comes to creating opportunities for women to showcase what they have, I think Akufo-Addo stands head and shoulders above John Mahama any day. But that's a discussion we can have subsequently. Now, the point I wanted to make was that in 2016, when the MPP attempted to enforce this affirmative action policy for its parliamentary candidates and passed a resolution that only females should contest females. I thought that was an excellent opportunity for us to come together as women. And I have had an issue with the women's movement in this country, even long before then, but particularly at that moment, because we didn't see what was being attempted. If that had succeeded, we would have had even more women being fielded in the strongholds of both parties, who would only be contested by women. So we would have a clear opportunity to ensure that we have at least 50 women in parliament at any given time. The NDC women move, what's it, women's wing, watched silently while we were torn to shreds for even daring to suggest that. And none of the women's organizations in this country ever spoke in support of that concrete way of institutionalizing larger representation for women in parliament. Until after there was a groundswell of public opinion against it, and the issue was almost like dead on arrival, before FIDA issued and WILDAF issued a very weak statement in support of it. On the morning that the National Executive and National Council of MPP was meeting to review the decision because it had met with public uproar. And I'm like, why don't we put our monies where our mouth is and actually see that some of these measures are bent or are targeted at creating more space for women's participation in politics? And then we just wait until the tide passes. I've also had an issue with them. They wait until 6 months to an election before everybody starts talking about, let's vote for women, let's vote for women. When you don't even have women on the ballot. How are they, who are they going to vote for? So it is too little, too late. But the NDC has to stand with the NPP women's activists to realize that it is not just a partisan political thing. We need to work collectively to push the frontiers for greater participation of women in political life. Otherwise, we are doomed to still deliver these same miserable results.
All right.
Currently, there are fewer than 50 female candidates, 24 for MPP, 23 for NDC. It's not likely that all of them will win their seats, even in the unlikely event that they all win their seats in parliament. That's still what? 47 women in a 275-seat parliament. I have no quarrels with the personal accomplishments of Jenano Poku Ajiman, but she's sitting atop an organization which is not very friendly to women. And so she has her work cut out for her if she thinks that by her mere nomination, she's going to make any difference. And I have been also consistent in calling out both political parties because I think that it is a political culture in our country. It is not very friendly to women. We need to, I'm happy that this has brought up an opportunity for us to discuss this dispassionately. But women, even though we have numerical strength, that has never translated into political power at any level, from district assembly right up to the presidency. And so, yes, she may be all that and more, but she cannot show up the inadequacies of the ticket on which she is. And that ticket is led by John Dramani Mahama.
All right.
That is their main problem.
Okay, so I'll take a break here. When we return, we will interrogate her capacity and capability as potential vice president and president.
Quickly react to a few things.
We will take a quick break and return to interrogate that issue.
In an ideal world, one of the strongest things going for the selection of the good professor would have been that she is a woman. And this would be met with a lot of enthusiasm. Unfortunately, Professor Opoku-Agyeman hardly meets the expectations of someone who has a track record of fighting for women or their welfare. Luckily for all of us, Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman is not new to Ghana politics, and it's her performance during her period as a political appointee that we are going to continue referring to from now on in. We need not remind anybody that it was during her tenure that training teachers' allowances were scrapped. It was done without paying any heed to the many appeals to reconsider the decision. Indeed, it was one of the things she was proud to have done, scraping teacher allowances, that is training allowances. Teachers were the hardest hit when Nana Opoku-Agyeman was at the helm of affairs at the Education Ministry. Let it not again be forgotten that Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman had been a teacher herself before she came to the position of Minister of Education. And yet, it was during her period that classroom teachers were denied common chalk to be able to write on blackboards. And we all remember the infamous saying, "We didn't give you chalk today or tomorrow," voiced by then Second Lady Matilda Misata, and Nana Opoku-Agyeman was in the saddle. Perhaps the worst thing that can be associated with her name was the Muntie 3 saga. When the Muntie trio threatened death upon some Supreme Court justices, including the then Chief Justice, Theodora Georgina Wood, the then Education Minister, now newly appointed running mate, was one of those who joined the campaign for the release of the Muntie 3. Indeed, her ardent anti-feminist position was too obvious to ignore when she appended her signature to the petition to have the trio, who had then been incarcerated at Nsawam, be freed against sound advice from well-meaning Ghanaians.
Well, I think that a woman has been nominated as the running mate, as we said, to a major political party in the country. And to that extent, we must congratulate the lady who the presidential candidate has found worthy to partner with him. So that's my initial comment on that. A calm woman, a woman of poise and balance. She speaks good English, yes, but is it good enough to satisfy the ticket? So if you're looking for a ticket, President Mahama is a communicator. So you want maybe a person who is a lawmaker or a lawyer who would add value to the governance architecture. He himself has been a member of parliament before. So one could, to be fair, say that he's acquired that experience from parliament. When I first heard, I thought it was going to settle on either Dr. Dufo or Nimoy, because they are, economists and finance experts of considerable standing. So I thought to complement the ticket, either of them could have done.
Apart from the sexist and baseless comments of Yabuabian Samoa, the similarly disgraceful comments by the majority leader in parliament that Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman is not capable of being described as president of the Republic of Ghana is one of the most backward and misogynistic statements by a high personality who should know better. Comments such as these are reminiscent of other similarly shameful statements made by President Akufo-Addo when he suggested that Ghanaian women are not dynamic enough at a conference in Canada sometime last year. The worst part of this embarrassment was that he made the comment at an international women's event of all places, where he was scolded and schooled almost immediately by a fellow panelist on stage. Such sexist comments have unfortunately but predictably come to define President Akufo-Addo and his party, the New Patriotic Party. Concerning her plea for clemency for the Muntie trial, the good professor only signed the petition to mitigate the harsh sentences of the 3 convicts after they had served 3 weeks in prison and paid 10,000 each as fines for scandalizing the Supreme Court. Her decision to sign the petition to request for a reduced prison term for the convicts doesn't in any way mean that she endorsed the unfortunate comments as the MPP would have us believe. It must be noted that the woman we are talking about is a responsible and caring mother of 3 and a loving grandmother.
Right, so you've heard the NPP Siabwa being a Samoa Member of Parliament and also Director of Communications of the NPP, and you heard majority leader in Parliament, Osei Chairman Sebonsu. There is one part of his commentary that if you're expecting that we'll play on this platform, we have elected not to play that. And then the final one was the NDC's communications officer, Sami Jemfi, reacting to the comments as were made by these individuals. Kweku, what do you make of the commentary that followed from the NPP's camp?
Honorable Eslousu's comments just before the last thing.
Okay.
You know, let's put this in proper perspective. I'm sure we all undoubtedly recognize the role of Madame Nana Akufo-Addo Rawlings in the women's liberation movement in this country and many other women before her. And long before even she became our First Lady, we had many distinguished women, even in the days of the battles for our colonial freedom from our masters and all of that. Historically, I believe that Ghanaian women have actually been part of this process for quite some time. Look at the informal sector, for example. And note that at the time when Mrs. Rawlings contested for that particular slot, she was actually contesting a former vice president. You understand? So the whole issue was not about whether she was a woman or not. It was just about the fact that people felt that a certain modicum of it should be maintained. And I'm sure that we all do recognize all the time the contribution of many other women to this process. But be that as it may, on this occasion, President Mahama has gone out there. He has actually struggled, you understand, like many other people, to make a decision of this kind.
Okay.
He has actually stood firm, you understand, led this effort through a very, very extended discussion point, and finally presented to the neck his choice for running mate. Like you indicated earlier, there were many individuals, all of them in their own right, capable of this opportunity. But you see, when we talk about my sister Esla's comments, for example, I remember her accusing her own party members at the time, vociferously, and there's a video that has surfaced, about their hostility towards female leaders. I remember the days of Madame Hawa Yakubu as a member of parliament. Long before then, there was Madame Adiza Munkaila. Mr. Bako is here. There have been amazing women capable of occupying the highest office of the land. But let's go back to Nana as an individual. And she's not a teacher, a lecturer of many students across the world.
All right.
And you know, when we reduce the debate to these conversations, you begin to wonder just what is going on.
Okay.
If we had gone for any of those other women.
So you have made the distinction about the contestation where Nana Akufo-Addo came in. All right,
and
thank you.
I get my sister Esla to be saying, is it the fact that President Mahama has made this bold choice that sets him apart from President Akufo-Addo?
Okay.
President Akufo-Addo had every opportunity to even go for Haji Halima in 2008, but he did not.
Right.
And look, make no mistake, Nana Akufo-Addo is a new benchmark, not of an existing standard.
So, Kweku, now the question I asked you was, having heard what you heard, the reaction from the NPP's communications and the majority leader, and the reaction from the NDC, what do you say of those comments? And then What is it that does not work for Nana Opoku-Agyeman going into the 2020 elections?
See, let me be very frank with you. I listened to Boabi and Samoa's thing. I didn't see or hear an attack on the gender of Professor Nana Opoku-Agyeman. I didn't hear that. I thought I rather heard the intention to critique a track record in public service, particularly as a minister. That's what I heard. I didn't hear any attack on her gender. That is with Boabi and Samoa. Now, with the majority leader, what you played, unless there's something extra that you didn't play.
But even with Boabi and Samoa, I mean, honestly, wouldn't you expect that someone from the opposition, Mr. Bako, at least would be measured even in his level of criticism?
No, you see?
If Nana were his mother or his sister or his lecturer, I mean, I'm sure he would speak with a certain modicum of respect. You see, I think we should stop focusing on the fact that she's female and focus on what she brings to the table, what she stands for.
So let's quickly finish this.
You see, this is a very tricky matter. And
Yes,
if you're not careful,
absolutely,
you can be misunderstood.
Right.
But Madam Joyce Bauer, your own statement projects the fact that she's a woman and you are seeking to elevate women to the highest office of the land. Your own statement.
But that you cannot
That's
take
a
away.
fact.
That is a fact.
And she says that's this is
a
a new benchmark.
It's a bold step.
Exactly.
A new benchmark.
Now you were going to Chairman Sabonsu's
Chairman Sabonsu. That's why I said unless there's something else you
there's a lot worse actually.
Because why you
Maybe
played
you
for
should have.
us to interrogate, there's no attack on the woman. As a woman. To be honest, if there is, then play so that we can deal with it properly. So I don't. See,
I just ask what your comment about what he had to say or what they had to say is about. Not about whether there's an attack on women or not.
That's unavoidable. Then DC's own statement, look, listen, there's a statement where they make the point that, let me read it. Distinguished friends from the media, Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman is a God-fearing leader who exudes profound humility, honesty, competence, decency, and patriotism. She has unblemished integrity and can be trusted to restore, operative word, restore the honor and dignity the office of the Vice President has lost in the last 3.5 years when elected. In politics, I understand why they're making this point, but predictably, it will bring a counter. And you have to have the heart to accommodate these things. So that's why I say that in critique of her track record, however merciless it is, should be taken on board.
Right. And
That's
Chairman
politics.
Sabonsu is looking for a lawyer, an economist, or something of the sort, and not...
That's not attack on the gender of the lady.
No, I'm not. I'm saying, what do you say about that?
Well, you can challenge that on many levels. President Mahama, when he was paid, was more known for his communication. But of course, had been a member of parliament for some time, had been a deputy minister and a minister, so he came with some political clout. But that I won't go for. There's nowhere in the Constitution or the eligibility factor that tells you that it should be a lawyer who can be a vice president or an effective vice president. So those things I don't worry myself about.
Or an economist.
Or an economist. There's nothing like that. We all know. But that's his opinion he's expressing. Earlier on, I had heard that he had attacked the woman from the position of her being a woman. And I thought we were going to play that for us.
Samson, you better play it.
No, because look, let me tell you what I've seen somewhere. Let me tell you what I've seen. This is on a certain platform. It's an MPP platform, which I've seen. I'm told there's this line, and I thought that I was going to hear it. It says, how can this woman become president? Did he say that?
He did.
Yes, but he didn't say how can a woman.
But he did.
But this is in reference to the lady.
But
this,
what is wrong?
if he had said how can a woman
But Professor Nana
become president or vice president or act in the absence of the president. That you can ask questions.
But he did.
But he said
that
woman,
as well. And that how can she act even in the event that President Mahama is unwell or out of office?
Well, you see, I'm cornered now. We need to play the thing.
If you have the event that he died.
Yes. Oh, he did.
In the event that the president, in the event that the NDC won the elections and President Mahama, touched it, and he said that many times.
The operative word is this. Now, it is not that a woman. It means he's questioning her capability to step into the shoes.
Even the manner in which he puts it is very derogatory. Even
now you are if you think his choice of words.
Exactly.
But you see, I'm saying that you are in this political game. I just read to you what your own communications officer has said relative to her coming into the vice president's office. It's an innuendo of a sort against the sitting vice president.
But it's
accepted.
That is a new benchmark.
It is accepted. It's this statement by Sami Jemfi, you may say is derogatory, but it's acceptable in politics. They are taking a jab.
No, he didn't take a jab. He made a statement of fact.
That?
Yes. And you've said it. It is a conventional
Madam, I appeal to her. I said she's a decent woman. I respect her. She deserves the selection and all that, but she should be ready.
She's very ready. But you know
the other part of my question to you was what doesn't work for her going into the elections as a running mate?
Like I said, it's interesting. Her profile at the Ministry of Education, her delivery, all those things will become on board. Education for this administration is one of their key areas. They are flashpoints. Whether I'm not talking about efficiency or competence in terms of delivery. That's not what I'm talking about. But it is a priority area. Obviously, the free SHS will become a priority area. What is Madam Jane Opoku-Agyeman coming on board relative to that? Because there will be a debate out there. This is what we have delivered. This is how we have delivered it. What did you do? They will come on board with their progressively free education option. We have to do a comparative to see how the two went. The building of the E-blocks were promised 200. When she was exiting, I have a handing over notes here. She indicated that they had been able to complete 47. That is what she said here. That is an issue. 4 years. You had told us you build 200 E-blocks in 4 years.
She told us?
Her administration. You see, that's the point. I told you, you can't put a Chinese wall between her and the flag bearer in terms of the administration. I've seen a very intriguing attempt, and I read it again from the NDC statement. It says, firstly, the claim that Professor Nana Jane Opoku-Agyeman cancelled teacher training allowance is false. The decision to replace teacher training allowances with student loan was a cabinet decision and not a ministerial decision.
And in fact, they even asked them to
this is turning logic and science on its head.
But are we saying that teachers are the only constituents within the ministry?
No, we are talking specific. I picked
just one item.
Of
there
course.
are many others we can actually set the record straight.
Yes, I agree with you.
I think that is
what I'm doing is to just to outline the issues that will be debated vigorously.
And
I'm saying that let me conclude.
This is your answer to my question, what doesn't work for her?
Her track record in government would be examined. And I think to a very large extent, it will be minus.
Why?
Not because she was incompetent, but because the administration she served could not deliver on all those things they put out. Let's be honest and draw them. That's why, you see, it's too early now. This debate has just started. In fact, I haven't even heard her talk. I've told she's issued an acceptance statement, which I haven't seen. But I haven't heard her talk. These issues will be determined. But let me make the point I was making. That how are you trying to divorce the ministerial from the cabinet? That's a sign of weakness, of that you don't really have a solid case to sell. Because look, the minister, and fortunately Madam has been a deputy minister before, the minister or the ministry prepares a memo on such key issues. Memo goes to cabinet. Cabinet discusses it. And then whatever they do there, changes or no changes, is adopted as a government policy.
Okay.
So for somebody to come around and say, oh, that it was a cabinet decision, not ministerial, it's just a peddling a fallacy.
I think Sami JP was responding directly to what Mr. Boabia Samoa actually said.
All right.
But as I said, the Ministry of Education...
The NPP finds that one other thing that will not work for her is that she doesn't support the women's cause. And they make reference to one particular instance, the reprehensible conduct of the Muntie 3 that we all roundly condemned, that she appeared to have rather supported it. From what you know, is that what happened?
You know, we're doing politics here. A little bit of propaganda. She's going to have to suffer those fallouts. But you know my position. First of all, I was not enthused about even the contempt proceedings. That's a certain principle I have.
Right.
You may say it's not valid. It doesn't matter. It's a personal thing, a consensuous objection.
You and I voted for Atachia for his boldness in going to the court to tell them in their faces that that's not a messy chamber.
Yeah, so I wasn't happy with the proceeding in itself.
Right.
Then also, I was against custodial sentence, even if the court were minded to punish or sanction. And unfortunately, they did a custodial sentence. I wasn't happy, truly. Now, after the verdict, the ball game had changed. It was only the political leadership, in this case the president, who could exercise his powers of clemency. Okay, that was a political decision. That political decision had implications. Do I do it or don't I don't do it? You do it, what are the fallout?
The specific that Boabia Samoa relies on
is the petition.
Is that Nana Opoku-Agyeman voted for that.
Yes, she signed it.
That reckless.
Yes, so she has to live with the fallouts. That's the point I was making.
From what you know, is that what she voted for? What did she sign for? She signed for clemency, or she endorsed their action?
No. That's why I said there's politics.
That's politics. And propaganda.
It will come on board, whether you like it or not. They all do it. But you see, the point is that she was signing for the clemency. That's fact. But that fact and its execution had political implications for the administration of the day.
I get that. Listen to Chairman Sabonso again, then we can go to Joyce and then to Esla on Zoom. Listen to Chairman Sabonso here.
The president, if he wanted a woman, and when they were mentioning some women, I honestly thought that we have some women of some demonstrable competence who have risen through this house to establish themselves firmly in the firmament. One such person could be Hannah Tete. She has been a member of parliament. She was a minister, a foreign affairs minister, and some other area. So he has learned the rules. A former member of parliament, I thought she could also have complemented the president's ticket. Or another person, the former Attorney General, Marita Opong, I mean, a solid person. I thought she was also coming up strongly. So if you wanted women, even the previous one, the first Attorney General, she had some skeletons. Betty Modidusu, she had some skeletons relating to Uwoyumi. Other than that, she's also somebody. But you ask yourself, what value is this woman going to add to that ticket?
All right, okay, so that's where this sound will be paused. There is the portion where he then asked the question, supposing that they won power and President Mahama died, will this woman fit as president? And I think that is what Chairman Sabonso has suffered the attacks for. Once that is not played, Kweku will like to act like he's in the courtroom, so he will not speak about what is not here in the evidence.
Yeah, okay. but you know, I mean, I still don't see an attack on a woman as a woman. That's not what I see. I see, because he's even talking of Hannah Tete, talking of Marita, and talking of Betty Moore. These are all women.
But he takes,
and so he's looking. It means he's looking at level of capability and competence in his value judgment. But if I'd had an attack on a woman because she's a woman, then I'll be worried. Look, but let's be honest. Whilst all these three, Boabian Samoa and Osei Chemis, I'm prepared to defend them as a matter of principle relative to the allegations being made against them. There's one that I've seen. So I'm sure sometimes you don't like us to bring this thing. But the one by the Asante Regional Chairman of the party, very unfortunate.
Right.
And that is what doesn't help the MPP as a party. Because
He's one of those that ESLA has, you know.
Yes, he's a regional chairman, for goodness sake, and of their stronghold. Okay? So yes, take out Useche Mason, take out Boabian Samoa, and this being fair. In his case, he's provided the ammo for us to come back on the same level and say the party is attacking women. The party must dissociate itself from Wuntume's statements, and indeed, maybe issue a reprimand, some query, publicly, if they cannot sanction him properly. Then we can move on.
Okay.
But these two things you've played here for me today, I'm not convinced.
But you know, as a footnote to what Mr. Bako just said, you know, and I'm inclined to believe that sometimes Kweku tries very hard to walk the straight and narrow on these matters. I would have expected that my senior ESLA would indeed even be reprimanding the Honorable Chairman Sabonso himself. He is our majority leader of Ghana, not of just Parliament, you understand? And indeed, I don't think the Parliament even is a yardstick. I mean, when you talk about the other individuals he mentioned, apart from Hannah Tete, for example, Marita has never been in Parliament. So it somehow even defeats and undermines his own
but
notions.
The experience in the Attorney General's department, and Chimensa is looking at a lawyer. You should get that.
I think that we overburden professional qualifications. I was a lawyer as early as probably before I turned 20. I don't think it makes me special or unique in any capacity whatsoever against another person who is a student of mathematics, for example.
You need a lawyer's eye on everything. Everything. You need a lawyer's eye.
Have you ever heard of a profession that has such versatility as the law? We've had classmates who were medical doctors, accomplished medical doctors. You understand? There's something called medical law. There's something called medical negligence.
All of that is not substitute. It's not substitute
single-handed
for quality training in law.
But it does not in any way take away from another person's academic qualifications. She has a Juris Doctorate in law. The only thing is that she didn't go to a law school.
Right.
There are many of us like that.
She's actually accredited with pioneering the Cape Coast law faculty.
The medical faculty. And in fact, she told me an interesting story about how she got Cape Coast to use the chemistry students to produce cleaning detergents to clean the university campus, to produce soap for the University of Cape Coast. When you talk about the type of economy that we have, it needs no lawyer, it needs no economist. In fact, Mr. Bako here is a fantastic example of someone who not only knows how to interpret the law, but how to use it to his advantage even. And recently I heard about his matter with Kennedy Japan, for example. Let's put this on record, that what Nana brings to the table is quality.
But that doesn't take away, Joyce, because of where you sit and your training, it doesn't take away.
No.
It doesn't take away Chairman's expectation that it is good to have an economist to complement a presidential candidate who is not an economist, who is a communications expert, and that in the absence of that, maybe a lawyer would better suit
Samson.
The complement the ticket.
I totally disagree with you. The fulcrum around leadership is the level of expertise around you. The most successful Secretary of the Exchequer in the United Kingdom was Gordon Brown, himself a lawyer. Kwesi Bochwe, the professor, is himself a lawyer. In recent times, there's been a certain convention. But today, where are we on the economy?
Okay.
Sometimes we need to look at pragmatism and practical examples. To listen to Nana speak about job creation will be a marvel to all of us here. And I look forward to that speech that will restate her rightfulness to be included on this ticket.
Do you find, though, that the examples that he preferred, the preferences that he made, they are all lawyers? There's no economists in that.
Well, I told you that.
He spoke about Hannah Tete, that's
Marietta,
a lawyer,
yes,
Marietta, a lawyer,
absolutely.
Betty Mould, a lawyer.
Yes, exactly. None of whom have any economic experience. So you see, that's what I mean. Sometimes, even in the things we say in our haste to play this political game, I'm sure he lost track of his own thoughts. And I even cracked a joke that if I was his daughter, my father had 7 daughters and 1 son. I would have called him, Daddy, please. You didn't say this properly. Kindly render an unqualified apology. Most of the examples he gave are individuals in their own right, as I said.
Right.
The reason why we go out to nominate or to vote to elect a president or a vice president is because we believe in people who care about this nation, who show a certain passion.
Let's get to Esla.
I would expect to hear Esla at least even, considering that she has tried very hard. And you've heard all the accolades and the congratulatory messages that have come for Nana's nomination. They have come also for the man who made this bold choice.
Right.
And they've come not just from female or feminists or activists for that matter. They have come from across the world. The local interest alone is enormous. Because for the first time, this is a woman who is more than qualified, even to serve as president.
Let's hear from Esla. And Esla, I may put you in a bit of an invidious position here. I am your constituent, and let me be frank and confess to you that once a woman is put on the ticket, my bias is to vote for a woman. I'm not saying that as far as a presidential candidate, that is what will go for me. So this must make a difference. You cannot discount her ability to bring on people who may be minded like myself. If you were put on a ticket, I more likely would want to vote for you. So listen to Chairman Sabonsu and then respond to this question.
Perish the thoughts. I'm not wishing that in any way. But let's assume that John becomes the president. And tomorrow, and let me emphasize the point, perish that thought. And the next day, he's no longer. Is this woman capable of being described as the president of the republic? And that is, it has nothing to do with her person. I'm talking about the quality in governance that she could affect and infect this country with. Is he the person? I don't think so at all. So that's where I have my problem.
Okay. So let's begin this way with you, Esla. Did you find him being derogatory about the passing of Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman?
Absolutely not. He is making an argument that, in his opinion, he doesn't think she is capable of even being the vice president. He thinks that there are more capable women who could have been running mate to John Mahama because of the qualities that they bring to the table. And that, in his opinion, he doesn't think Jane Nana Opoku-Agyeman qualifies. He is entitled to his opinion.
Right.
And if you listen to the trend of the entire argument, that is the consistent position that he's been making. But the NDC is good at creating their own distortions and answering it. And it's the exact same thing with Yabuabe Asamoah. He criticized her work, never challenged her person. He assessed her track record, never challenged her person. And yet, they've somehow thrown it into the public domain that these two have done something that is so offensive to women in decision making. Don't you think
your reaction could have also fared to those who thought that you were actually attacking people like Chairman Sabonsu and Yabo Abinga Samoa?
Which reaction?
You said that you were surprised and shocked about how people in your party, you know, were sort of attacking women, so to speak, and that is not the way to go.
I never said that relative to anything happening now.
Okay.
I am talking about the consistent position of the political parties in this country, MPP, NDC, CPP, whatever, when it comes to women's representation in decision-making. And I have consistently held that position. Like they say in when you assess all the parties, I think MPP is slightly better than the rest of them. But I still think that they can do even better, even more than they have done. Right. I haven't said anything or responded to anything that, any comment that I have made. I spoke on the day that the nomination was made and issued that general caution, not subsequently, no.
Okay.
But let us all be clear in our minds that their choice will be criticized. The ticket will be criticized. We will do our politics. You all need, and the NDC, they think they have a monopoly on dishing out insults. They've called Dr. Baumia a liar, whatever. Even in their own statement, they're saying he's brought disrespect to the office of vice president. You think it is okay to dish it out, and yet no one should respond to it. The criticism will come. But the caution I'm issuing is that let's focus on the essentials. Her track record, her performance, even her ability to even serve in that position in the unlikely event that they win the elections. And that is exactly what Chairman Sabonsu was doing.
Okay.
Exactly what is offensive about that. Even after he said that, he was careful to say that it is not an attack on her as a person.
That's right.
And yet they edit all those parts out, create their own distinction, and answer it. I agree with you that one to me went a bit overboard, and what he said was unacceptable. And I won't sit here and defend it in any way. But to ask the party to issue a disclaimer, I think is going a bit too far. He spoke in his personal capacity. No one asked him to go and say that.
He's a chairman of the party in the region.
It still doesn't make him any less than an individual. I'm making a point there.
It's difficult to divorce him from his office.
When John Jinapo, spokesperson to Vice President John Mahama, sat on Metro TV with me, told me to my face that I sat on men's laps to get to the position that I had occupied. I wrote an open letter to then Vice President Mahama, telling him, drawing his attention to what his spokesperson had said, and asking him to dissociate himself from it, reprimand him, and ask him to apologize and withdraw that. I did not hear a peep out of him, not even an acknowledgement of my letter. So if today you tell me that he is in some way friendly to women by this choice, we will look at their track record.
Okay.
What have they done consistently up to now when it comes to the rights of women?
Okay.
And Montier 3 is very important.
And finally and briefly, briefly.
You're asking for clemency for people who've sat and publicly vilified and called for the raping and murdering of a Chief Justice who's just doing her job. I think that takes the cake. When you never ever spoke in defense of the Chief Justice when she was being vilified and attacked.
Their point was that
no one spoke in defense of her.
Their point was that they had already been punished. They had made payments, and they had stayed in prison for a while and has expressed sufficient remorse. And so, by the same measure that we all together, particularly on this platform with Kwekubaku, pleaded for all the others who came before them, including my good friend John, God bless his soul. We pleaded for all of them. How is that different?
The point I'm making is, when those offensive comments were being made, what did she, as a representative, we're being told now, of women in the NDC say about it? Now, and we don't have time, but when it comes to NDC people making certain statements which offend other women from other political parties, none of them ever speak up in their defense.
Okay.
Not one. I haven't heard even one.
Right.
And that is where the selectivity comes in, which goes at the root of it.
Yeah.
Now, moving on, why I think that she is also not going to be a very useful addition to the ticket. Free SHS. NDC sponsored over 200 adverts attacking the MPP policy during their campaign in 2016. She was the Minister of Education at the time. Not once did we hear her saying that, making it possible for children who, because of the lack of finances, would drop out of school, to give them an opportunity to go to school is a good thing and will empower them in life. She never said that. Even after the policy was introduced, they sponsored demonstrations against it. I'm sure you've seen that clip. Free education 419, free education 419. You, former Minister for Education, a policy that has saved 1 million young children from falling through the cracks, who would if but for that, have not been able to get an education. What do you say? And you say nothing about it. What do you say? And now you're telling us we should accept you.
In 30 seconds, what do you say to the NDC's communication that says that who is better placed to supervise the current education policy than someone like her? And so, as far as they are concerned, at the top, vice presidential level, she is going to give the best of supervision for the free SHS program.
That she didn't even believe in the first place. Now they say Kwatrikwaso Obema Untuma TND. You look at what she did as minister to decide whether she would be able to superintend any educational policy successfully if given the chance. She failed abysmally in that position and left an educational system that was near tatters. Ghana even had to pull out of international standards, examinations, assessments, because we were failing so miserably. So really? Then we opt out. Please.
We thought that the record showed that the country posted the best BEC and WASI results during her tenure.
And for 4 years running, Ghana received the topmost awards for those exams. You know that is not true.
Okay,
let's
so what do you say to Ursula when she says, when you say this is an indication and vindication of President Mahama wanting to champion the cause of women, and she mentions that encounter, I'm surprised she's able to repeat that, what John Jinapo had to say, and that the president didn't even have the courtesy to say anything about it, not even an acknowledgement of her letter to reprimand John Jinapo?
I can bet you that you can see, and since that incident, you observe that John Jinapo specifically has been one of the most composed, well-poised operatives we have in Parliament today. And you'll be interested to know that John in particular is one of those gentlemen. Look, I've been on programs with my sister Ursula. Sometimes she can really push you, even for someone as calm as myself. I would never say that what John said or did at the time was right.
Can be justified.
Absolutely. And it cannot be right then, it would not be right today. But I would always call for enormous respect and honesty. And I believe that you can tell there's a touch of hypocrisy even in my senior submissions this morning, in her refusal to condemn and admit that whatever Oseche Mensah Bonsu said goes to the root of who Nana Opoku-Agyeman is, including the fact that she's female. You can also look at the fact that even in 2012, if you recall, at the peak of the campaign, there was a debate.
So we heard Oseche Mensah Bonsu.
Absolutely.
He was very clear in separating her womanhood
I think he did a very...
From the comments
I think
and stating rather her capacity.
No, he did a very poor job of it. And I think what defeated all that he tried to say was the fact that he said touch wood in the absence of President Mahama. Please, Samson, please. Nana Opoku-Agyeman can even stand to be elected as president of Ghana. And you see, let's not undervalue, and I'm sure Isla knows, the contribution of Nana to education in this country. The policies that she has lived by example, first and foremost, by her teaching, by her pronouncement, by her passion. Note what Nana did to child education, primary education in Ghana. Note what she did for teacher-to-child ratios in Ghana. For the very first time, the monitoring of the GES of educational institutions was at its best. In the terms of the promise to deliver on the 200 schools, for example, in the space of 4 years, she left handing over of 46 of those buildings, as against a 350 promise that they made that we are still waiting to be delivered. You see, I believe that if anybody understands our modern educational culture and has lived it and has experienced it, it is Nana Jane. Do you know the gift of a female who encourages other young girls to go to school and stay at school? You recall the criticism that greeted her proposal of the sanitary pads for young girls. Those things keep girls out of school. My mother was in charge of the girl child education. There were times when she would spend her own money to buy sanitary towels for young girls because that was the only way they would stay at school. She would even teach them how to use it.
If you followed,
so when we talk
on the issue of promoting women,
let me finish.
On the issue of promoting women, can we find any specifics?
Many specifics.
And the example that comes to me immediately, if you followed Chief Justice Wood,
absolutely,
she was deliberate in putting in place programs deliberately intended to promote women, encouraging women to become lawyers from the scratch. Is that something we can point to that she did that promotes women specifically?
A beautiful example of a scholar currently on the University of Ghana campus, a physicist, Dr. Amakluche, who will tell you that Nana Jane is a role model. She encouraged her. She encouraged and developed content for the National Science and Math quiz. The idea was to promote sciences for the girl child. She has actually tried in every step of her way to encourage girls. And remember, she started from Wesley Girls High School. She has lived it, she has taught it, she has shared it. I keep telling you that unlike all of us, Nana could have gone the corporate way, you understand, and made all the money in the world. How has she used her talents in linguistics? She has encouraged teaching of young children in vernacular, for example, to be sure that children do not leave because they are unable to communicate in English. She believes that the best way of instruction for a young child is actually to instruct them in the language that they are comfortable with. It builds confidence, it gives them security, it encourages them even to stay in school. You know, Nana Jane, unlike any other Minister for Education, is one of those individuals who has lived her experience of what suits our educational policy.
Sam George, a member of the communication and an MP, his first reaction when the nomination, the selection was announced was that she, with her pedigree, will better supervise a free SHS program and improve it.
Remember that it was even a program
you don't have the blueprint. You didn't even believe in it to start with.
She called
How do you do that?
At the inception of free SHS, if you remember, Nana Jane was one of those who called for a blueprint. She called for a roadmap. She called for government to tell us how they intended first to implement, secondly to execute, and thirdly to keep and sustain this project. You know, let's put this conversation in proper perspective. And I would want us to have an issues-based debate. Who would you give your children to educate? A woman who has lived and educated many other women to become like Eslawusu and I, or one who has sat in a little corner and probably participated every now and then when there's a conversation. I think Nana emulates all that we call feminism and feminists. I believe that her life epitomizes her contribution to the cause of women and the empowerment of women. You can ask Professor Techiwa Menu, ask Professor Efua Sutherland, go to the Ghana Academy of Sciences. When they didn't even have a permanent building, Nana ensured as education minister that they made a point to deliver this. And remember, the subject of the teacher allowances, the Education Ministry comes with a huge constituency beyond teachers. And I can bet you have met teachers who have celebrated Nana's nomination as Ghana's very first VP nominee of a huge and largely successful political party.
Yes, Kuku wants to make a few points and then we would close the chapter on this
on the subject of the Muntie 3.
Yeah.
You know, I think it is a matter that I have responded to so many times, Samson. We have cases where presidents, in their own right, have even pardoned murderers. It is something that a president is allowed within his prerogative to do, and the Constitution allows you so to do. On this occasion, those boys, and I've met some of them, pretty decent on an ordinary day.
There was a groundswell of opposition
against
by decent Ghanaians against it. And the president decided to take that decision.
I'm sure Mr. Baku is a decent Ghanaian. So is President Mahama. They have children the same age, which is what sets them apart from us. She has raised children that age. They had made these very, very, very unflattering, terrible remarks.
Yeah, so you let them suffer the punishment.
They had suffered part of the punishment. They had shown remorse. They had paid the fines. And in fact, between us, they have never repeated similar statements. But be that as it may, we've had thugs of this political ruling government who attacked a court where a pregnant judge was sitting in Kumasi at a high court specifically. Yes, some individuals have condemned those actions, but did this not happen?
Yeah, but we are talking about Nana Jean.
And that's what I'm telling you. I'm giving you examples. That doesn't mean that those boys, those men, those thugs who attacked that judge in that court, that if they finished serving a sentence or they were in the course of serving it and had shown similar remorse, had paid the fines, and they were young people whose lives could even be re-engineered, rebuilt, would that not make a difference?
All right.
And remember, you are a parent. Would you always pick up a long cane and start lashing at your child all the time? These boys have shown remorse.
You don't want to invite my views on that because we were so against it.
We can do the politics
today.
But yes, we admit that they had actually shown remorse. And I believe that Sir John and others had told a similar line.
All right.
They expressed regret.
Kuku, so what would be your final comment?
I'm so happy you played Chairman Sambonso's full tape. I was so happy. It settles the issue. Of course, that point about if the president were to die, in our language, these things are very simple and easy. And fortunately, thank you. And fortunately, he said, perish the thought twice. Of course, we have a precedent where a president has died in office before. No, let me finish. So once that part is out, I think it's good. And next time, people should rely on what was actually said and not their own interpretation. But I'm a bit surprised at Madame Owusu's decision. No, she doesn't agree with me relative to reprimanding.
At the party official level.
Look, this has collateral damage or implications for the party. When the party itself is clear in its mind, including Madame, that we are not going to attack the woman because she's a woman. We are focused on her track record, professionally and politically, and deal with those issues, which is the right thing to do. And then you have a regional chairman distorting and polluting the environment with all those utterances. And you say the party doesn't really matter in this matter, in this case. And her recollection of her letter to Vice President Mahama then, which didn't have any results, does not take away the principle that when party officials, particularly leading ones, do what Wontumi did, he ought to be reprimanded. In fact, her experience, the fact that Vice President Mahama did not react the way she wanted, doesn't take away the principle at all. And I'm surprised she will not come along with me.
I'm sure that it is even possible that Mr. Jinapo may have been reprimanded.
But
thank you.
Publicly.
Well, but if you reprimand him privately, at least tell the petitioner that this has happened. Because as we speak, she doesn't know about that.
I've asked about my senior's own relationship with John Jinapo over the years. And I'm sure she knows.
This is where we draw the curtains on the discussion on the topic on Professor Jean Nana Opoku Agyeman's running mateship with John Mahama.
You finish, and that is something that I've actually thought about over the weeks. We welcome a debate on issues. We welcome a debate on policies. What we do not welcome or accept is somebody's definition of who a feminist is or who an activist of gendered issues is.
Thank you. So we return to ask the question whether or not, looking at our numbers, as in the coronavirus infections and spread, there is a need for a relook at the easing of the restrictions. In fact, when the restrictions were eased, the president's commitment was that the science and the data will dictate a potential review of the circumstances. That is not warranted now. Dr. John Amoesi will join us. We'll be right back. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, it's your most authoritative news analysis platform. And this is where we will always put Ghana first. My guests have been Abdul Malik Kubako, Editor-in-Chief of the New Crusading Guide newspaper, our regular panelist, Joyce Bar Mukhtari, special aide to President John Mahama, and Esla Owusu Ekofo is MP Ablekuma West Constituency and Minister of Communications. Now joining us also via Zoom is Dr. John Amoesi, and of the KCCR. Thank you very much once again, as always, for joining us, sir.
No, thank you very much, Samson, and to all those in the panel and also on Zoom. I've really been enjoying the very stimulating discussions.
Right, and on the panel, on the panel is one of your biggest fans, Kweku Bako. All right.
No, I've been totally flattered by some of his comments.
Yes.
Good morning to you, Kweku.
Right.
Thank you. Good morning.
Okay. So, Doc, from what we see now and looking at the way the disease is sort of misconducting itself around the place, do you think that there's a need for a rethink in opening up the schools and the present mass gatherings that are happening, albeit under the protocols that are being observed? And I think that the EC deserves the credit that after the first round and after the criticism, you can see that a lot has improved.
No, thanks for that question, Samson. I just want to reiterate a couple of points that I've made a number of times on your show, which is just the facts regarding how this virus spreads. And that is, the more people gather in the space, the increase in the risk of transmission of the disease. This fact must be emphasized repeatedly because it is devoid of any abstraction or ambiguity. It is just very clear. Now, when that happens, or when this understanding is clear, it means that any activity which will result in increased human interaction will increase the risk. The question is always, what quantum of risk will we increase this by? So when we speak of whether we need to reconsider or otherwise the reopening of schools, it may neither be here nor there. What I would say is that right from the get-go, we should have, and I say should have because I don't know if we do or we do not, but should have in place some ballpark figures or some cutoff points beyond which we say, okay, if we go beyond this point, then we will do A, or beyond this at another point, we will do B. Right? Because no one can certainly argue that there is no point at which we will say we cannot continue school any longer. It means that there is a point at which we would have to reconsider this. What I don't know is what that point is, because it has not been put out in the public domain. And this is where I have repeatedly called for these cutoff points or this algorithm to be made public so that even independent people like myself can monitor these and provide very useful comments on the situation, the direction in which we're going right now. So to cut a long story short, I would say, yeah, there must be a place where we reconsider our activities, reconsider reopening of schools, reconsider restrictions on movement, and reconsider policies. There's always a place for this, but we just don't know where that is right now.
So there's a lot of clamor by parents who have had to run to the few schools that have reported, infections and having to deal with them. And people are looking at all of that and saying, let's just shut the schools.
Right, Samson. No, unfortunately, it doesn't work that way, right? I have to be very clear. The fact that there's an infection or 2 or 3 or 4 or even 10 or whatever does not automatically mean that you shut down everything you're doing. It's a function of, what is the population in that place? What is the proportion of people who are infected? When did you get to know of this infection, and therefore how many people could be infected? Now, with this virus, there's 2 things that make it very difficult for us to arrive at decisions, but nonetheless, we have to find a way of arriving at these decisions a bit quicker than we are currently doing. One is the fact that we have delays in conducting the test and also in receiving the results of the test. There are numerous people who have wanted to do, who cannot do the test any longer because now the policy is you don't get a test unless you are ill, unless you're sick, probably ill. There's also a number of people who have been in very close contact with people who are infected, either because they live in the same home with them or share an office space with them, who on the normal circumstance when we're doing the enhanced contact tracing would have been reached out to and have their sample taken. That is not happening any longer. So that's a delay in testing. Now, if you're fortunate to get a test for one reason or the other, how quickly do you get your result? Which means that there is a delay both at the back and at the front. So at the time you get to know someone is positive, the probability that they've been in contact with several other people is very, very high. But then there's the other side of the coin, which is the asymptomaticity. And the research is showing that we can have up to 70, in some places even much higher percentage of people who are asymptomatic. We've seen from right here in Ghana, the findings from the Ministry of Education, if I'm right, the Cocoa Board, if I remember correctly, and a couple of other government institutions which have had high numbers of people testing positive. And if you should inquire further, you'll realize that the greater majority of these are totally asymptomatic. In fact, the testing was precipitated or motivated by 1 or 2 people who felt that they may have been ill or have been in contact with somebody who was ill. And so they decided to test everybody in that space and realized that, look, I'll tell you, many corporations, institutions will tell exactly the same story, except that these are not in the public domain. They do a test and voila, 60%, 80% positive. It tells you that we have a lot of people who are asymptomatic. And we've had to be dealing with this from phone calls from friends and family, all kinds of things. But when you have these 2 situations, the delay in testing, the delay in getting results, and then the issue of asymptomaticity, then you realize that when you have 1, 2, 3 cases in a school or in a close population, as we would say in public health terms, then you can be sure that there's a lot more people are likely to be infected, because by the time you got to know that A was infected, many more people will be infected. But then the other side of it is that many of them may actually be asymptomatic. The challenge with this disease is that we just cannot tell who will come down with severe disease.
What should we be doing, knowing the numbers we know now and how the spread? Because now we know that the spread is growing exponentially. So knowing that fact, what should the approach be? Thankfully, we are told that what we needed has come in, even though we delayed, because people had done tests, and for almost a month, they didn't have the results. And as you mentioned, from where I sit, I have had doctors, medical practitioners get in touch with me and express a lot of worry that they have tested and the results not coming in and they have to go to work. And some of them actually believe that they heal even by the time that the results would have come. So what should be the approach going forward?
No, you hit the nail right on the head. There's many people who, by the time they get their results, they sometimes call me, call some of my colleagues here. And the answer we give them is, look, when we look at the timeline between when you were tested and when you got your result, by this time you're actually pretty fine. Nonetheless, for specifically the school situation, what I'd recommend is when you have an outbreak like what we're seeing, especially when you have someone who's symptomatic, someone who's ill, you want to move in quickly and conduct a quick test, not of everybody, but of a certain subset of that population, to have an idea, especially those who may have been in very close contact with the individual, either in the same dormitory or in the same classroom, to have an estimate of what the situation will be. Now, let's just reflect that on some of the decisions that have been taken at our ministries, like the Ministry of Education and other places. You realize that they have shut down completely, or let me not say shut down, but they've closed their offices. They've closed the offices. Why? Because they have the luxury of being able to test a certain proportion of people and realize that we've got a large number of positive people here. We've got to close the offices for a while to allow these people to recover and reduce the risk of spreading to others. Why don't we do the same thing in the schools where we have an outbreak? Because we don't have an outbreak in every school.
Right.
Certainly mass testing would be great, but we just can't do it right now in this country. Where there are outbreaks, move in there, do a test of the subset, and then based on that, make a decision. And we've got to be able to call that decision of closing a school if we really need to make that decision. Unfortunately, a minister can decide to close the offices of a ministry, or a director can close the offices of his or her institution, but a headmaster or headmistress, especially of a government school, cannot call that shot. And it makes it a bit difficult for them. And I really feel for headmasters and headmistresses who will be in that position where they cannot really make any definitive choices. And those who can make those choices really have to be able to gather that information, which will help them to make that decision really quickly. Unfortunately, currently there are too many delays in arriving.
So there's no science behind the suggestion that if the Ministry of Finance is closing its offices, the Cocoa Board is closing, the courts too, relatively, BOST is closed, Great Co offices, and the president himself is going into isolation. These are places where you say you have adults who can exercise a lot of responsibility. And then you are leaving rather children who may not be able to exercise same level of responsibility, and schools that cannot afford what these can afford to protect themselves, rather to stay open. You are saying that suggestion, there's no science behind it?
Not necessarily, and maybe I didn't quite get you right. Maybe if you can just come again with that question.
The concern is that if these places are shutting down because they are discovering infections, if the president, who gave an assurance and promised that he will not put any child in harm's way, is going into isolation having had someone connected to his office, test, positive or something, then it should rather be the case that the schools should not be working.
Oh, I get your question now. So what I was saying was that for the ministries, the BOST, the Great Co's, and the others, they have tested and have been able to ascertain that they have high levels, 60%, 70, 80, even 90% of people there infected. And at that point, no one needs to tell you that you can't keep going and coming to work.
All right.
Two things in school. One is the school is a closed population, which is we don't have the students going and coming. So it's a very close population. So the risk of spreading, outside or bringing something furthermore from outside is lower. Number two is we're actually not testing in these schools that are having these outbreaks.
The school, doc, is not exactly a closed population. Because some are having to go to school and return home.
No, you're quite right. No, when we say a closed population in epidemiologic terms, they hardly can be anything like a fully closed population. There will always be some porosity, but maybe I should have used the expression a well-defined population. That may be more appropriate. So I was just explaining that unlike in the ministry and other places, people come to work, take public transportation, go back home. You don't have that same level of interaction for schools. As much as you'd have in these public places. Nonetheless, we should put ourselves in a position where we can make that decision as to whether the school should remain open or not. Unfortunately, as I was saying, we are not collecting this information. We can't even determine how far it has spread. And what I'm really itching and pleading is to see what the cutoffs. What are the cutoffs? At what point do we say no more? This school must shut down, or so and so and so. And I think Ghanaians really should need to call for this so that independently we can look at this and say, okay, we've gotten there. We've got to do what we said.
So in some 30 minutes, would you that we adopt what we know is happening elsewhere, where they are clearly situations? They say if there is one infection within a class, that class is suspended. If you have more than one infection within the school, the entire school is shut down. Should we have some protocols like that? Because we have a situation where as many as 6 students are infected, and we say we shouldn't shut down.
No, I think it's echoing what I've already said, which is that we need to know what our cutoffs are. Now, when you speak of cutoffs like if you have one infection in the class, the school should shut down. If you have one infection at school, the school should shut down. These are all functions of many things. Functions of the level of interaction among the students, size of the class, the size of the schools, the amount of mobility that there is between the school and the outside world, and so on. It's very difficult to say that a single infection should warrant a total shutdown. We have had situations where in well-defined or even closed populations, we've had a couple of infections. There has been no shutdown or no closure, and it has been able to be contained. In other places, this has not worked at all. And now they live with the regret that they should have taken action much earlier.
I see.
There's always a fine line between, using a very heavy hand to using a bazooka to kill a cockroach, and that cockroach would die all right. But then you've wasted a whole, a ton of ammunition on just a cockroach, and is it really worth it? It's difficult to tell, but what I will press for, and what I think the media should press for, is to know the cutoffs. When we get to know the cutoffs, then us, the professionals in this area, can then come and criticize the cutoffs and say, no, your cutoff is too low. Most often than not, we will not say too high, but we'll say it's too low.
Thank you.
But
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We clearly need to know those protocols, as we have come to know exist elsewhere. If one person is infected, a class is suspended. If more than one is infected, a whole school is suspended or shut down. Or if there are 5 infections, there are 10 infections, at what point do you shut down or do you suspend school activities? And that is important. Now, Kweku, Dr. John Amosi doesn't seem to subscribe to the situation where, like in Kenya, they have declared the school year lost, as is reported. So what do you make of what is going on? How should we go about this situation? Again, we are not unaware that this is what is supposed to be the new normal.
See, let me be honest with you. When it comes to these discussions relative to COVID-19 and the protocols and all those things, I'm absolutely inadequate and uncomfortable. As a human being, I feel worried. And know that things must be done properly. But I'm totally incompetent when it comes to dealing with these matters.
What do you say to the agitated parents?
Yes, I was coming there. Those who ask for closure of schools or perhaps cancellation of exams, for how long? That's the first question I ask myself.
Maybe like Kenya. The school year is lost.
Yeah, but for how long? When is COVID
for the year
exited?
2020.
And that is assuming COVID will be gone. COVID-19 will be gone. You see, it's an uncharted territory. dealing with it itself, the methodologies, the philosophies, everything keep changing daily. It's not the best time to be in government, really, to be managing this process.
Right.
I'm telling you, it's not the best time.
The president said that we are easing the restrictions with a caveat that depending on the science and data, we may have a certain review. Yes. From what you have seen, there's no cause for a review?
There might be a cause for review relative to some specifics. I'm not for a total lockdown. We all know it's not an option. And we've just been to even mass testing too. It's not an option. We don't have the capability now. So yes, my understanding of what the president was saying was that we'll be looking at localities and some areas and perhaps apply some localized shutdowns or some protocols.
Right.
And as I said, the problem I'm having is that I do not have that technical understanding to be able to advance specific solutions to this problem.
Okay.
I just feel it. But to ask that schools close down, I said, how long? Cancel examinations, for how long?
Right.
Because I can't see when COVID-19 is exiting this world.
Elsewhere in America, some universities elsewhere have declared that the whole year there's not going to be any
You keep on saying the whole year. The whole year, that's specific, time frame.
Yeah.
But post that whole year, would COVID be here or not? And if COVID is still here, another whole year, isn't it?
So
that's why I have a difficulty.
COVID showed up, we were told that at least we give ourselves some 18 months.
Is that what the WHO is saying?
That's initially the CDC and the rest of them.
I'll pray it is 18 months. That would be short. But from the way things are going, I'm not too sure.
Okay.
We don't even have a vaccine yet,
right.
do we?
Let's get to Ursula. So you are in government. How do you feel about people who say we need to review and impose stricter impositions because of what we are seeing? What do you say?
Just two quick points before we get. I think the Bloody Widow too was a low point that the NDC ought to apologize for, including the MP who actually came to Parliament because of the death of her husband. And they all walked out and held placards calling Sarah Lydia Alassane a bloody widow. And I was like, even you two, I've lost a great deal of respect for the NDC female parliamentarians since that point, and I needed to make that. And I never heard any of them, including Joyce, condemn that. On the contrary, they defended it. But that's an aside. And also, I've just been informed that face shields alone are not enough protection against the virus. And so Samson and Kweku, be careful. Don't wear this outside the studio, but wear the face shields with the mask, because the face shields only protect against splashes. So I think that move to face shields, we should watch it.
Right.
Now,
a number of doctors, physicians have given us advice, like you just did, and some others have also suggested that if we're going to be speaking for 3 hours here, we should not be wearing a face mask and inhaling back our own stuff. And so we are in a bit of a dilemma, but they seem to suggest somehow that once all of us within the building have a certain covering, the protection is assured. So please proceed.
I don't want to comment on that.
Right. Yes, okay, Dr. Mwesi wants to say something briefly about that.
No, Samson, I was just looking for a leeway to come in on the face shield, because I wasn't very impressed to see you guys in face shields, and I even saw the Honorable Chairman Sabonsu also when he was talking to the journalists also in a face shield. I wasn't impressed at all. Right. I'll tell you why. The current position of the WHO and the knowledge that we have regarding how this virus spreads now is tethering on the brink of even being spread by aerosols or being airborne. Yeah. So I remember very well that we had an online meeting for church leaders on Sunday, and we were discussing what to do starting this tomorrow, Sunday. And I suggested, look, we have a very big stage, which is very long and very wide. Right. So I suggested that, okay, Reverend Minister, you can stand at the far back of the stage. The front rows or pews are quite a significant distance, well over maybe even 20 meters from where you will be. So you can just use a face shield. But when the new information came out and I studied it carefully, I had to call him and say, look, I gave you some information about this face shield business. I actually have to backtrack right now. It's not going to work because, especially we're in an enclosed space in a building, right. The risk of the droplets being in the air to some degree and then becoming aerosolized becomes very high. Okay. So the face shield business will not cut it.
All right. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, Doc. Thank you, Doc. We are running out of time, so I need my guests to quickly comment on the issue at stake. So if we can have Esla in under a minute, we need to take a break. So under a minute, what do you want? Do you want more restrictions?
We can't afford more restrictions now, but we all need to be more careful. So I couldn't agree more with your opening statement. And then once your sample is collected for testing, please assume that you're positive and self-isolate. Yeah. Then you take on the responsibility of protecting yourself and those with whom you're in close proximity. And in our schools, I believe that they would have isolation sick bays and stuff like that, where the children who are infected can be isolated. I think that with the controlled environment of our schools, our children even are better protected than in our homes. Let's face it, many of those infections were brought in from home and not from the school. Once in, we should have the protocols, and I think they already are in there. And they're working with the Ghana Health Service to ensure that the rest of the population is protected. And I believe that in the schools where infections have broken out, the significant samples have been tested, and they're clear in their minds that they don't pose a significant risk to the rest of the population. Right. Let's not get too scared. But we don't know how long this, like Kweku said, this thing is going to last. So close down the schools for how long? All right. Defer exams for how long? Thank you
very much. Thank you very much. Can we have you in 30 seconds before we take our break?
Well, very, very quickly.
I need to take a break right now.
You know that I'm sure the Honorable Jinapor has actually sent you a text message. And Esla, he says that all that you said are mere fabrications. He utterly disagrees with you and denies extensively what you just said about him. I think that maybe you should have consulted him first, actually, before making the statement. And then, of course, quickly to the Ayawaso West Worgon matter. It had absolutely nothing to do with Lydia, who is actually a relative of mine. It had everything to do with the violence. So if you talk about the description that were used on the inscriptions, then we can have that conversation. But note that even the president himself had reason to set up a whole commission of inquiry into this matter, of the violence that characterized it.
Should restrictions be reimposed?
Well, that's a conversation we can have as we go along. You know, I have young children, and I have actually spoken to some of the kids who are currently in school and on campuses. Samson, they are not social distancing in the dormitories. We've all been in boarding houses. I think that a lot more education is required. Certainly this ailment is going nowhere. This virus is certainly going nowhere. I pray that very soon we do find a vaccine, but certainly first and foremost, and I remember President Mahama had said this at the beginning, we need additional PPE. Okay. We need to ensure the safety and protection first and foremost of those who are in the hospitals manning these activities. And secondly, we ought to note that these are young children. You heard what happened in Kumasi at the senior high school of Noost. The kids were so terrified, even the teachers were afraid. Okay. These are the things that generate this fear and panic beyond what we're talking about.
Thank you very much, Joyce. We take a break here. We'll be right back. Please don't go anywhere. You're welcome back. This is Newsfile, so most authoritative news analysis platform. And we've had for our guest, Madam Joyce Ba Muktari, special aide to President John Mahama. Kweku Bako is our regular panelist. And I have been asking myself, really, and thinking that I have been the longest host of Newsfile. And then I asked myself, but Kweku Bako, I used to listen to him when I was where? Is this secondary school on this show? Guys, Esla, John, please help us to wish Kweku Bako a very, very, very happy birthday. Right.
Thank you.
This is the Chairman General.
Oh, wow.
The Chairman General. Please. Take my seat.
No, this seat is too big.
Yeah, no, this is your seat.
Hello, girlfriend. How are we?
Am I not lucky to have two of my favorite men here?
You know
and wearing my colors.
Ojam, happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
66 is just...
I can see he's blushing. He's living like you.
I can't believe this.
66 is the new 40.
Oh, wow.
Looking at you.
Oh,
and
wow.
so here's to wish you many more years in health, good health, plenty money, and
oh, okay, I didn't hear that one.
No, you didn't have to hear.
No, I didn't hear that
Seriously,
one.
did you say 66?
He is?
Yeah, it could be 66.
Awesome.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
1066 last
Okay.
Tuesday.
Yeah, that's
Right.
true.
And so that's your birthday cake from Multimedia. And I was just roped in to do the presentation
No,
and the
just
cutting.
hold on. Don't cut the cake yet. Don't cut the cake yet. Let me go on the phone lines now. I want to speak to somebody. Hello, who do I have on the phone? Hello. Yes. Please, gentlemen, Mr. Ambassador, please introduce yourself to us and tell us why you are on the line with us on Newsfile.
We can't hear.
Hello?
We seem to have lost it.
Hello? Okay. Well, okay. Could we take a listen to this? Listen to this.
A brother, more than a friend. We used to live together. We actually used to sleep on the same bed. And he's been quite fantastic. In spite of all the problems, he's kept to his line and has contributed significantly to shaping the course of democracy in our country. Although he was not directly involved in the formation of the movement for freedom and justice, he did play a key role from the background, offering advice, sometimes being consulted on sensitive issues, and so on. He was a founding member of the Alliance for Change, which had Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo as the spokesperson. He has been active in the media space for well over 30 years and has contributed his quota to shaping the destiny of Ghana. On his birthday, I'd like to say a very happy birthday to a brother and a friend. I'd like to wish him a happy birthday and prosperity in the days ahead. You have made your contribution to Ghana's development, and I salute you for that.
Kwesi Frag Jr., managing editor of the Insight newspaper. Let me get onto the phone lines now. Hello, good morning, and welcome to Newsfile. Hello. Okay, let's listen to this one too.
A very happy belated birthday to my husband, Abdul Malik Kweku Bako. I'll forever adore you for teaching me to stand with nothing but the truth. Happy birthday, my hero. God bless you.
Right. So
we got you
that's Aisha Zuera Bako. Thank you very much for taking very good care of Kweku Bako for us. Now, Ambassador Alhaji Abdul Rahman Haruna Atta, forgive us for the lines that's messing up. And then also Ben Epson, managing editor. We want you to know that all of them are very excited and they have very good wishes for you. Okay, so KSK, can we now take care of this cake? That's where my eyes are.
Where your eyes are, well, Joyce is here, I'm sure that it would.
All right. All right.
Okay. Now I am blushing.
Esla and John, please hold on because you'll have to say something to Kweku Bako. Okay, so if Joyce would help us cut the cake.
Yes. You see, it's quite obvious he doesn't know how to cut a cake. You're holding it like you're about to butcher.
I'm sure you a much softer touch.
You see, now we have a female touch to it.
Okay. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Kweku.
Happy birthday.
Thank you. Right. So let's have Esla make a few remarks, and also John Amwesi. Of course, John, this is your biggest fan. So Esla, can we hear from you first?
Happy birthday, Abdul Malik Kweku Bako. You know that you're one of my absolute favorite people on this earth, and I wish you the very best. I just kicking myself that I'm not in the studio with you. I owe you one, and I will deliver within the coming week. And I am so excited that I've been part of this your celebration, even though it's virtually. But you always will be and remain in my heart, and I love you to bits. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
66 more healthy, prosperous, full of vim years ahead of you. And I saw the sign that you made, and I wish you all that.
All right. Okay. Hello, Dr. John Amwesi. Let's hear you.
No, a very, very happy birthday to Mr. Kweku Bako. He's definitely an icon in this country. And Samson, I mean, like you, who used to watch him when you were a student. I mean, everyone and every intellectual in this country and even beyond has been watching him ever since. For me, it's a total privilege to even be able to share some space with him, although virtually. It's just a pity I can't get to share in that cake. But if you keep some in the fridge for me, I'll be more than grateful.
Yes.
Sure.
I just wish you the very best, the blessings of God, health, grace, favor, and everything good you desire. And I'll add my voice as a medical practitioner also to the final wishes which those in the studio wished you, and also that Madame Ursula also wished you, or whatever that sound was.
Thank you very much. Let's now hear from Joyce. And hearing from Joyce also means that we are hearing from President Mahama.
Well, thank you very much. And we all do know about President Mahama's relationship with Mr. Bako. I have followed him all my life. And of course, it is to his credit that I survived in this space. I remember early days when I was really, really shy, and he'd call me and encourage me to the most versatile individual that I have ever come across.
Thank you.
Very happy birthday to you, sir.
Thank you.
Many, many, many best wishes. And at this age, all you need is good health. Long life and happiness beyond measure.
Thank you.
An absolute honor to be part of this.
You were shy?
Extremely. Oh, yes. I've come of age, and he knows.
And you know that Kweku will look out for the women.
Yes,
more particularly.
One of his biggest weaknesses.
That is true. Right. So I, on my own behalf and on behalf of the Multimedia Group Limited, will associate ourselves with all the well wishes that's been pouring out for Kweku Bako. And for me personally also, if I sit here and you hear me say some of the things I try to be bold about, it is because I can look up to some history as far as the frontiers of journalism are concerned and the role that Kweku Bako has been playing. He's a patriot to the core. And I think that for all the time he says one thing, keep to the truth. Be consistent, and that's what is keeping all of us. So on behalf of the Multimedia Group and all your millions of listeners home and abroad, we want to say happy birthday to you, Abdul Malik Kweku Bako.
Thank you.
Yes,
thank you. Yes, so,
happy birthday. So what do you have to say for yourself?
Exactly.
Oh, this is humbling. You've rendered me almost speechless.
Right.
Big surprise, and thank you all.
Okay.
Yeah.
The talkative can't find words to use.
All right. Well, what he doesn't know is that he's walking out into a lot more surprises. So
you're joking.
I shouldn't be saying this. Let's go out. All right. Thank you all very much, and thanks for being with us all day. Have a good afternoon.
Thanks.
The Chairman General.
You plotted this thing. Okay, 2-1.
2-1. Now 2-1.
I did it to him, and he's doing
it to me. I've done it twice. I did one.
Okay, so as you march out, let me speak to Benefsin. Hello, Benefsin.
You see, I can't even look in your face. It's you guys that are, hiya.
Hello, Benefsin, managing editor of the Daily Dispatch newspaper. Hello, Benefsin.
Hello, good morning.
Great. So we came to you looking for some of the old pictures. We have seen some pictures of Kweku Baako, and we can't believe that is him. What do you have to say on this occasion of his 66th birthday?
All I can say is that over 40 years ago, our paths crossed. And your desire to see the downtrodden is given a better life wherever he or she is in the trail you've been blazing. As you cross 66, may the good Lord guide you. Happy birthday, Ujam. God bless you.
Thank you very much. So Kweku says the picture that we just showed, he doesn't have a copy of that. There were some others, unfortunately, that got bent when Benefsin's, residents got bent. But we managed to get a few more. You can watch. Yeah. And this is Kweku Nana Akufo-Addo there. Can you look at Nana Akufo-Addo again?
Press center.
in his hair and in those glasses, fellow Ghanaians' glasses. All right. And this was the celebration that they had recently on the anniversary of the what was that occasion again?
25th anniversary.
Yes, right. Okay. Hello, Ambassador Alhaji Abdul Rahman Haruna Atta. Thank you for joining us on Newsfile.
Thank you.
Right. So
Abochi.
Right.
Abochi.
Yeah,
I mean, this is a pleasant surprise.
Really?
How is Abochi doing?
Well, we are surviving, man.
Growing.
It's been a while.
Growing gracefully. You know, we are gradually approaching 70. We are senior citizens now.
Say it loud.
Right.
I keep telling people that in a couple of years' time, I'll be 70. You see, my grandchild is here talking away. He says, "Boy, yes, I'm on an interview. You go, I'll call you back."
Right.
You know,
right.
The choice of grandfatherhood. I wasn't saying I would call you back. I was telling my grandson to go out, call him back later to let me talk. You go and watch the TV. Go.
Okay.
Yeah. So well, that's quite an anniversary then. From the date of Sonny Decker to Frechiti to Mauko and to the fufu at that place. What's its name? We used to go to eat fufu.
Heavy do.
Heavy do. Those were fantastic days.
Right.
Well.
Okay.
Happy anniversary.
Thank you, my brother.
Right.
Yeah.
He was my prison mate, you know.
He was your prison mate.
Yes, of course.
Right. Yes, and that's a part of the history that a book is coming out, and you just can't afford not to have a copy of that book by Kweku Baako to read. And all of that put together, a combination of all of that, is a lot of inspiration for us also to keep on and to keep fighting for Ghana. Kweku, once again, thank you very much.
Thank you
there
too.
Are millions
I'm really surprised.
who are glued to this show every Saturday because of you. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you.